doing?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today in Industry 5.0 Talks, I am meeting Raphael. And you know, we are not so far away from each other because he is in Austria, I am in Czech Republic. And if you look in a historic map, you will see that we are in fact sitting in one country.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's not that far away.
I would like, Raphael, because other people know me who listening or watching my channel, but please introduce yourself first and then we will talk.
Okay, yeah, thanks for having me. So my name is Raphael SCHRANZ. I'm working in Austria for 40 minutes south of Vienna. I'm working as a self-employed circular economy consultant, and basically what I'm doing is helping organizations, institutions, companies in their transition from a linear economic system basically to a circular economy. What I'm doing in my service is basically in education. I'm helping them with trainings where we go into topics of like what is sustainability, what are linear economic systems, what are the environmental consequences of these linear systems, what is the circular economy, what is circular product design, circular business models in general, circular supply chains, and all of these topics. The second thing that I'm helping them with is the circular resource mapping, where we basically look at what resources go into the company, what go out of the company in terms of waste or in general systemic leakage, and how can we actually loop, or how can we actually implement these circular processes in terms of materials, water, and energy loops to basically achieve cost reductions, emission reductions, and make this transition from a linear economy to a circular economy and circular operations as seamlessly as possible. So looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you for the introduction. And I have a question. Is there any difference when you use your experience and you apply it to steel industry, automotive industry, education, politics? Or can we say that generally circularity will remain circularity no matter where you are?
Yeah, so the principles of the circular economy, there are certain methods that you can basically apply to every single industrial sector. Of course, not every industrial sector is the same, right? So you have different methods and you have different structures in terms of product design, for example, materials that you're using, for example, in the plastics industry or in the metals industry. It also depends on, for example, are you dealing in an industrial sector where you basically have biological materials, for example, in the paper industry, right? So we know, for example, that in Austria that the recycling rate of paper is pretty high, and it actually works quite well, simply because of the fact that it's actually a biological material that is more easily reintegratable, right? But of course, there are certain methods that you can actually use universally in all of the industrial sectors, yes.
Because the same is, you are not limited by the country or by the region because you speak English, so everybody who speaks English or German can utilize your services because, as you said, it's similar. Of course, there will be some differences. Is there any project which you would like to say, this is a project I'm proud of because the result was whatever change?
Yeah, so from my perspective, what I found quite interesting, so I was working with a company in Ethiopia, and they were basically working already in the circular bioeconomy. So they were collecting used coffee grounds, and basically they would go around and basically they would collect used coffee grounds from restaurants and from different organizations in the restaurant industry. And what they're doing is basically they're getting these waste streams, they're collecting these waste streams, and basically they're making 3 different products out of it, right? So they're making coffee oil out of it, coffee flour, and coffee fiber out of that, right? So that's actually what I was very proud to actually work with them, because I actually helped them to increase their circularity operations in terms of the biological materials. Basically what that did was basically create a win-win situation for both parties, right? So on the one hand, the restaurants, they don't have to pay disposal costs. They are happy if they can dispose their wastes to another industry that actually uses these waste streams for secondary raw materials, right? So On the other hand, the other company does not have to buy these primary raw materials because they're getting them as waste, right? And these things, what I was very proud of, because that's actually a strategy called industrial symbiosis that we can actually apply to different sectors, right? So where one waste stream basically is the input material for another system, right? And that's actually a little bit on natural principles. So it's very much aligned with natural principles. So very much aligned with circularity in natural systems. For example, a forest where all of these materials are being reintegrated and basically waste is eliminated, right? Because there is no such thing, right? It's only raw materials, right?
Yeah, this is why nature is the role model of Industry 5.0. There is no waste. So simple it is. On the other hand, there is no planning, there is no business, and still it works. But I can tell you, it's much more harder to tell any CEO don't plan or don't make any business plan. Then you don't need to waste. The waste topic, they do understand. If I ask them whether they prefer to generate waste or profit for 10 years, I receive only one answer. The question is, can you imagine that this project, which you just described, will transfer from Kenya? Was it Kenya?
It was Ethiopia.
From Ethiopia to Austria? Because in Austria, there is no such a project.
There's not such a project. There are certain projects in different industrial sectors where, for example, different other waste streams are being used for other systems as secondary raw materials, right? And also in my hometown, they actually started with that coffee grounds collection. So they're doing that now. That took a little while. But yeah, I think this strategy from industrial symbiosis, of course, you have to look at what are your byproducts in your production process first. You have to standardize those things. You have to know what are the materials and basically what industry needs that, right? So you could say that you would also need digital platforms for that. We have a company that is working closely with very big companies in their production processes to basically reintegrate all of these streams. But I think it's pretty powerful method. So industrial symbiosis is, in general, I would say is pretty good.
I like the concept of industrial symbiosis. Generally, we call it to breaking the silos in Industry 5.0, because this is exactly what you do. Why I have asked the question is generally that we have a lot of existing solutions, and many of those are not in the industrial countries. They're implemented in countries which are, let's say, far from being called industrial. I do not want to call them underdeveloped, because that's not true. In some way, they are much more developed than our countries. And I see that the industrial symbiosis should scale generally from the countries where they have been developed to others. So globally, it's same like nature. So if the seed will be transferred in a bird somewhere, it will try to grow there. And I find that there is a lot of restrictions in Austria, Germany, European Commission, in, let's say, the developed countries, than restriction in the underdeveloped countries, because we have all the centuries of writing laws and regulations and so on. And if somebody would like to collect the grounds, the waste, let's say, from the coffee grounds here, he or she needs approval to collect the grounds to manipulate with waste. You need another approval by the hygienic, whoever, and so on. So it is quite a long way, which is a pity, because I would like to thank you, because you was before part, an active part of the last Power of Touch when we spoke about the limits of speed. And one of the topic was generally that we are delaying our development because of these restrictions, which was not here before. We try something, it was successful, so we tell someone, he tries as well, and this is how it grows before all these limits exists. But then we start to implement limits, and we generally do not put only the businesses in a cages, so in a silos, we put ourselves in silos. You are a manager, so it's a horizontal silo, you are worker, and we are when I saw this, generally, the image was like the bars in a prison. You know, they are like this, and you cannot get out. And this is not a bars which has been applied to our life in a force. We adopted, freely adopted, to be in a zoo which is run by someone who has more power and whatever money. And we are in a zoo, and we are happy to, and we call ourselves free. But the fact is that until we break the silos, break the bars away, we will be very limited in this industrial symbiosis, at least on a scaling topic. I am sure in Ethiopia, it can scale from one village, one city to another, and there can be more. And if they can communicate, it will be much more efficient. But it will be hard from them to expand, and it can be the transfer of know-how. There are many ways how to do, expand to Europe or to US. You know, there are countries which consumption of coffee is even higher than in the original country.
Yes, I think there are a lot of great points in there. So if we want to implement these strategies of industrial symbiosis globally, for example, we have to deal with different laws, right? And we have to take a look at the waste management systems that actually exist, for example, in Europe, right? For example, in Austria, if you're generating waste, right, and you bring that into a bin, right, the law states actually that you are actually giving away the right of your possession of the waste, right? So this liability gets basically transferred to the waste collection companies, which is then basically the waste is then their property, right? Because they have all the rights, because they are the ones who are actually collecting it, they are the ones who are sorting it, they are the ones who basically send that into incineration, or in other parts, different materials they are sending back into different production systems, right? Now, what industrial symbiosis tries to propose is basically that the extended producer liability of a company basically gets extended to the point of the end of useful life, right? So that, for example, if a company produces some waste, right, that the company cannot say, well, I'm gonna bring that into that bin, and basically I don't have to deal with that anymore, right? So what we want to do is basically nudge these companies a little to basically tell them, well, you can actually make an income stream off of that, right? Not only if you're acting in an environmentally friendly manner, not only can you reduce your costs through reduced disposal fees, but also you can transform those costs actually into income streams, if you are willing to look for a company who actually deals in these strategies and would actually take that. And that's actually, I think, the power. Of course, the liability is actually transferred at the point of sale when they are actually using these secondary raw materials for other principles. And I think the law has to keep up with that a little, right? Because now the extended producer liability is not that clear, right? It's not, there are certain loopholes where basically companies can say, well, I'm just bring that there, I'm going to dispose of that, and I don't have to deal with it anymore. Even though they had to, right? Even though they would have to, but sometimes companies just don't, they just don't care. And this is actually the thing that companies need to understand, right? So it's not only that you can reduce your cost, you actually can be more profitable if you're acting environmentally friendly. And that's actually the very powerful thing I try to convey in my trainings, and I try to convey with companies and all of these things, that to be a sustainable business is actually economically viable, right? Because you can actually, through a different growth mindset, through a different growth strategy, you can actually be more profitable over the long term and more stable over the long term, in terms of if you would not act in an environmentally friendly way, right? And I think this is what I'm doing in those trainings. Yeah,
I do fully agree with you, and I would like to show the audience what you just described about waste and not waste. Okay, I spent
yes,
sure. 2 years to make this simple way of visualize what is waste, because the people do not understand the law which you describe is similar in almost all the countries. Some countries completely missing, but they are few, but almost all the others, they find ways, one of the three ways or all three. one definition of waste is something what you would like to get rid of. This is really written in Czech legislation, and I think the European as well.
In Austrian,
so generally, if my wife
yeah.
would like to get rid of me because of divorcing, I become waste. That's not true. According to this law, I will become waste because the legislation does not care whether it speak about living object or a new or gold. No, if you would like to get rid of something, I call this definition stupid. But there is a second one, which I will show then more precise. So it says that waste is something which is located on a location dedicated to waste storage, which means in a waste bin container and so on. And then the ownership change and so on. And I will show something. So if we meet for the first time face to face, I'm used to give you my business card, you take it from me, everything is right. Just erase this memory. And we meet again, and there is one difference. As we come to each other, there is a complete new stainless steel in the middle. I come to you, I fall down, and the garbage and the business card fall in the garbage bin. It's stainless steel, completely new. I do not have any second one, I'm stupid. But you, for whatever reason, you would like to have it. So we go to the garbage bin, we look inside, and we see there is just a business card, nothing else. So you said, Michael, I would like to take it. So, okay. I take it out, I check it out whether it's clean or not. I apologize with you, I hand it over to you. At this moment, when you take it from me in Czech Republic, you take with this the right to 200,000 euro penalty. It will be the most expensive business card in your life. Why? It's connected to the second definition. So generally, if you imagine, this is the edge of the garbage bin. Here is the business card. Here is a business card. Here is waste. You see, nothing happened. But according to the law, as soon as it reached the place that dedicated for waste storage, it becomes waste. So here is a product, or we can say profit, cost. Because waste is usually cost. How you prevent waste happen what you described? You just stretch your hand and catch the product before it reaches this edge. 98% can be prevented by becoming waste this way. And this is exactly how you create a source. But it is important that you do not behave with the product or material like with waste. So means, for example, you do not throw it in a garbage bin, but you, if you speak about wooden pallets, you put it in a pile. That's fine, because somebody can take it as a product. Even if broken, they can take it as a component. And we tested up, I think 98% was possible to do so. There are some limitation, dangerous waste or nuclear waste, but they are very few, so really very few. Even with the bio waste, if you do it the right way, it must not be waste. So
yes,
it is interesting, and I am really happy that we meet each other. It was not so long ago, so 1 week we speak together, or 14 days, that's not so long. And it is very interesting how efficiently we can apply your knowledge and my knowledge in the projects which are there. And this is exactly about it, because it's, if you would like to create the symbiosis, communication must be on one of the first steps which you will improve, because usually in factories, even two colleagues are not able to communicate efficiently, not speaking about the levels. So if we improve this, if we don't say I am automotive, I am bike producer, I am batcher, it doesn't matter. All of you use Euro pallets. Why one is throwing them away and the second is buying new ones? That's not so. Yes. To do that, I think, and this is probably, I'm not sure, probably this is the difference between nature and humans and industries, because nature probably communicate in some way which we do not understand. But we need to communicate in a way which humans and industries will understand. So this is language and numbers.
Yeah, and I think there's some great points here you mentioned there. I mean, when we talk about the global economic system which it currently exists, right? I mean, there is a reason why we have that much waste, right? Because we're living actually in a system that basically creates a lot of waste, and that has to come from somewhere, right? I'm not going into the financial system, but the financial system also has a lot of implications and a lot of structures that actually play into this, right? With planned obsolescence, simply due to the fact that we're actually living in a debt-based system, right? So we're creating money and we're creating credit on an unprecedented scale, which basically you have to service this debt basically, and for that service of debt, you basically have to extract more and more and more resources that create a lot of waste, right? And a lot of people link that financial system also to waste generation, right? But in general, I would say, of course, waste is nothing natural in nature. So waste does not actually exist. It's nothing natural. It's not an inherent reality in economics, right? But the situation where we are in right now, industrial symbiosis is one strategy, right? Where you're using waste streams or different materials from one system and basically use that in another system, right? That's one strategy. Another strategy, for example, would be highly durable products, right? So that products have a certain design, and I think the design of future products and services is essential, because we know that a lot of percentages in environmental impacts are actually determined at the design phase. So we know that, for example, different design choices like durability in products, reusability in products, the possibility to disassemble products, right? To repair products. All of these things actually lead to different structures or even standardization of Euro pallets, for example, or standardization in plastic products, for example, right? All of these things actually lead to an increase in life cycles where you can basically loop all of these materials around, and where the highest economic but also the highest ecological benefit actually exists is in our strategies, right? So if you're reusing a highly durable product, right, a lot of times that's pretty environmentally friendly, right? Because it actually slows down these newly extracted resources. It very much slows down all of these materials that actually have to go into this. And I think this is very, very important for the future sort of design choices.
Hey there, I am listening.
Okay,
Just
still
picking
there.
up something. You are absolutely right. On the other hand, there is something which exists forever: chemicals. 3M
Yes.
is the producer. So we are facing at the same time the issue when you make something too good forever, that it can be a big
Yes, so
issue.
that's the other part. So the one on the one part is actually you want to reduce the quantity of waste, but you also want to reduce the quality of different wasteful and harmful chemicals in one product or per unit of product, right? So that's where the REACH directive comes in from the European Union with these chemicals and all of these things. So we need standardization for that. But that's also one important thing, so that we're reducing and not using highly harmful chemicals in products. So
generally,
totally agree with you there.
I think that what is missing and what is in nature is the balance. Because if we feel there can be money made, so we just forget about the balance. For example, many people tell me, because I'm riding electric a unicycle for 9 years, they tell me electric cars are better, aren't they? And I say no. Why? Because if there is no balance between electric and standard, the electric car is great for the city. It's great for someone who rides few hundred kilometers per day, per week, whatever. But they are not good to ride from me to you, or for other purposes. So if there will be a balance, unfortunately, this balance is artificial created because it makes more money, incentives and so on. I would like to show you something. This is generally, this material, it's hardly visible. It's generally a soft material and is used from the production of cardboard, from the automotive production generally. So it's, and in this form is the insulation for the roof garden. The second thing, these two, they are construction materials. This one came from India, made from the dangerous waste in Indian hospital. This one made in Europe. It's made from Tetra Pak and single-use packaging. Both construction materials, both certified. This one in India, this one in Europe. And what is great about this, and this is coming back to your explanation, it's not only waterproof, bug-proof, and generally fireproof, but it's so-called heat compression technology, and it's without any binder. So it's just the heat and the technology make it together, and it's construction material. So which means you can crash it after the end of life, and you can do something different out of it using the same technology. That's quite interesting.
Yes, that's exactly the point, right? If you don't have highly harmful chemicals in that, right, you can actually more easily reintegrate these products into different materials, right? Because otherwise you need a lot of work. You need to separate these harmful chemicals again that hinders reintegration. But that's actually a very good point. So to glue these things together, maybe we're using a lot of different materials in the future, right? For example, lignin, mycelium, seaweed, algae packaging, different materials that are very, very promising for the future.
And there is not just the need to create something before I made something new. This one generally, it's a nice fashion accessory, quite a big one. So if you compare it to my head, and my head is not small, it's made out of the used bags from potato chips. The methodology is 400 years old. Just the Japanese did not have this type of material. What is interesting about it, and we did not know before we tested, and it was tested, it was an accident how we tested. Generally, it's RFID blocker. So if you put your payment card inside, nobody can steal your data because it's blocking. It's 14 layers of aluminum, which is interesting. About the way of designing things, few will believe me, but this is really a bottle. This is a bottle packed in a special packaging. The bottle is called generally origami bottle, so we are close to the other product. And if I unpack it, I have a real size bottle. We have 10 more minutes left. And the great part, despite the fact it's called origami bottle, it was not invented in Japan, but in Bulgaria. And the great part, if you would like to make it small again, you just press here, press there, and press here. And you have again, when it's empty, you have a small size bottle which fits in a special packaging. So
great.
There's a lot of things which are really here, which are existing. This bottle is very expensive. So this is one of the prototypes which I received from the founders. But we can use it and utilize it. And that's exactly why it's needed to explain to the business owners, to politicians, and all the others, the possibility to use the existing resources. You know, you are existing resource. I am existing resource. The paper which is here, it's existing resource. The issue is that even with the others, we created limits without considering these existing resources. And sometimes there are products being introduced being environmentally friendly, like the in water dissolvable plastic packaging. It's great. It really dissolves in water. I have samples here. I tested. But the issue is when it dry up, when the water dry up, there is a thin film left behind, which is much more dangerous than the plastic itself because it covers the inner parts of the body. And the animal will be killed because from inside out. And when I tell this to the producers,
that's a very That's a very big problem, also in bioplastics for composting collections. So if you have bio waste and you're also using these biodegradable plastic packaging, it's not really possible, right? Because you actually have to have some sort of plastics added to this biopolymer. Otherwise, you cannot store it. If it touches sunlight, then basically it gets broken down. So you have to have these small amounts of plastic in there, and I would say that's problematic. What the industries try to suggest to the public. Yes,
and they are very careful to use as a sales tool only the terms which are real. It dissolves in water. Yes, I cannot say it's not right, but the issue is that it leaves something behind, and instead of solving it, the producers stop communication with you, you know, so it's difficult. On the other hand, what I love, it's really to look back in a history. You know, I love to work with people from India, Indonesia, Malaysia, South America, because they are closer to the roots than we are. We are somehow far already, so we have this technology. And for example, what I love, more and more companies or food producers start to pack in Asia in a palm leaves. They are just creamed. And this is a natural product. Unfortunately, I was looking across Europe for a big leaf, and we do not have so many such a big leaves. On the other hand, even our forefathers, I don't think grandmothers, grandfathers, they are too young for this. But people older, we did not have plastics. I will say 100 years, we did not have plastics. So how we did it? And there is another topic, which I think we will discuss in another our talks. And this plastic is the communication between the consumer and the producer and the middleman, which is the shop, for example. Because right now, if you buy a water in a bottle, it's possible that it was produced 1 year ago, because the shelf life become the criteria of accepting it. And if I speak about the bottle, you know, many people are surprised when they came to my office and they see single-use plastic bottles. There is nothing wrong about the plastic, because plastic is just another form of crude oil. There exists a technology for 60 years which can turn it back to the crude oil. The issue is the single use, which we did not mention at all. And you know, when I tell to people, okay, so what do you do with the bottle when you drink it empty? And they say, I throw it away. And my question is why? Because have you tried refill it again, is my question. And they said, no, why? Because it will hold the water. It will hold the water the same. You can do it.
You can use that. You can refill it quite often.
Exactly. And I have here bottles. I am testing here bottles for 6 years. Refilling it, I don't drink the water anymore. They are, let's say, there is inside, they are dirty. On the other hand, for my flowers on the roof garden, the water is completely fine. So if I refill it a second time, I cut by half its carbon footprint. So simple it is. And if I refill it 10 times, and so what is needed to change, this is to step away from the single use as a source of income, because it doesn't matter whether it will be produced from plastic, metal, aluminum, paper. If it will be a single use, the result will be all the time the same. And I was on a presentation by Tetra Pak managers 5-6 years ago, I don't remember, in Lithuania. And they said, it's so simple to separate the paper from the aluminum layer. And I asked them, who can do it? And they answer, those who has our machines. But I will not buy their machine here to Czech Republic just to separate my own 2 layers, because even these 2 layers, you know, there's a lot of people which say, if you ask in a room full of people and you know, and you probably did it, who is recycling? In Europe, usually 95% goes up. But your answer on this, your reaction should be, you are lying, because these people do not recycle. they sort. Yes, in sorting we are great, but the issue is that the waste industry, which promise to recycle, does not do that. The Czech government says we are recycling 92%. The reality in Czech Republic is 12. There is 80% difference because the politicians sell sorting for recycling, and that's not true. It's a very far journey from sorted material to new product. But waste company will never tell you. So we have only 2 more minutes left.
Yes, I mean, on the plastic example, that I think that this goes hand in hand on what I've mentioned before, right? So that durability is very, very important, right? Highly durable products, you can actually use plastic as well, right? If you use a plastic bottle that is highly durable for 50 to 100 to 150 use cycles, right? Or cycles of useful life, right? Because you're always refilling that. Well, of course, that could be a solution, right? You have to think about, okay, does that create microplastic when you put it into the dishwasher as well? Those are different topics, but yeah, this is a great point. And also the recycling rates, what they actually mean is downcycling, right? Because what kicks in is basically a reverse compound law, right? Because you're actually losing 50% of all the materials when you're actually melting these plastic bottles, right? So 50% at the first instance, 25% at the second instance, and so on and so forth, right? So you're always losing these 50%, which basically creates a self-perpetuating increase in material that you actually have to supply, right? And of course, on the recycling facilities in general, I would say there is a waste hierarchy, right? The waste hierarchy that is actually inside the waste framework directive from the European Union states very, very clearly, actually, the thing you're saying all the time, right? Waste prevention is the first thing. Of course, we have incineration plants, right? And incineration plants only are profitable if you have enough material where you basically light a lot of things up on fire, right? And so they have to be profitable, so that the avoidance of waste apparently is not really on the front line, right?
Exactly,
so
exactly. And it is, we have only 1 minute left,
right?
And we will continue for sure next time. But I would like to say to people that generally, if you recycle, you can recycle only waste. So you have to generate waste first to recycle. Upcycling, you do not generate waste.
Recycling should be the last thing. Yes.
So I would like to thanks everyone who is watching. Have a nice time. Free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, free and visible. And I hope that if you enjoy it, you will like the next one, next conversation. I don't know when, but I am sure it will come here. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Michael. Really enjoyed it. Have a great one.
See you, Raphael.